What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with yet another album review. Kind of begrudgingly, I'm gonna admit right now. So I'm starting this one off a little bit differently because, yeah, this is gonna be an interesting one to talk about. So I am talking about the latest offering from Satan, Songs in Crimson. This also came out on September 13th, this time on Metal Blade Records, and this is the band's 6th studio album overall, and of course, these guys are legends of the new wave of British heavy metal since the very end of the 70s. They were mainly active in the end of the 70s into the mid-80s, and then they broke up, changed names, and then broke up again, and then they've been back together, I think now for 14 years, and have put out albums since 2013, and I've heard good things about this band in terms of their recent stuff. Then again, this is one of them NWOBHM bands I didn't really get into, but I've heard good things. So I was looking forward to checking this album out, and, well, needless to say, I was leaving this album feeling like, what the fuck just happened? Just putting it point blank, I am not a fan of this album, really at all, and yeah, as I go through this, so the opening track, Frantic Zero, it starts off with potential, like, really cool, tasty guitar licks, but then comes the other instruments, and yeah, it's kind of the beginning of a derailing train, as pretty much for the most part, songwriting-wise, this is just some classic old-school new wave of British heavy metal stuff, with occasional moments of punk and other things here and there. So musically, it remains very much in that old-school NWOBHM style, but the production, oh dear lord, I think this might be up there for one of the worst produced albums I have heard this year. And it's mainly in the mix, like, so with Frantic Zero, the drum sound is just very strange. And of course, during this song, the snare sounds almost silent, especially whenever the double kick is going. The snare is almost inaudible on here, and I'm just like, what the hell happened to the mix and the master on this? Like, it is just, ugh. And then, of course, there are certain points on this album, pointing out particular ones in the songs Frantic Zero and what was the other one that I had written? Turn to Tide. Those two songs, I don't know what the hell they were thinking when it came down to the lead tone, but it's very squawky and it was borderline grating, and I was just kind of like, oh my god, it almost sounds like nails on a chalkboard playing at high speed. It's like, my head! Get this out of my mind! I was just like, what happened here? Like, the lead tone, like I said, on a few of these songs is really squawky, but then there are other times, for the most part on the album, the lead tone isn't that bad. It's just in those two songs, whenever it's, for some reason, gets so damn squawky, I'm just like, stop with the squawks, whatever that pedal you're using is, just stop it. Stop it. It was really getting under my skin the more I listened to it. But anyways, so yeah, the opening track kind of was a bad sign, in all honesty. But then you get to Era the Day Will Come, and this was really where things started going downhill. Like, the guitars are way back in the mix, while the bass, drums, and the vocals way more out front. And of course, the song itself just kind of felt like a generic Ram Dash Shackle affair. In all honesty, like, I just could not get into this song at all. But one positive, there's a high note in the vocals, like a cool falsetto, which I was like, okay, this is pretty nice, but I am going to flat out admit I was not a fan of Brian Ross's vocals on this album. To me, other than the high notes he nailed on Era the Day Will Come and Turn to Tide, other than that, he sounded like he was just singing one song while the rest of the band was playing something else. It just did not gel with the music, at least in my personal opinion. I mean, I've heard little snippets of Brian Ross's vocals from back in the day, and he didn't sound bad. I'm not saying he sounds bad on here, it's just he's just stuck in one particular range, and it kind of got a little static, or not a little, it got quite static as I was listening to this album. The one song I will actually say that I think stuck the landing a little bit more for me was Whore of Babylon, because the mix actually felt even, like you could hear everything pretty evenly. The kicks, the snare, the bass, the guitars, the vocals, like it all felt even in the mix. And the song itself jams, and there's like even some like punky D beats going on that kind of harken back to early British punk. And even some cool shredding leads on this track, and even a nice bass gallop that just really keeps the song going. And then you get into Sacramental Rites, which was another one of the better songs. Clean melody that builds up kind of like Iron Maiden. I'm talking early Iron Maiden, like the self-titled and Killers a little bit. But again, the snare falls back into the mix, and the lead tone is too forward when it gets to the solos. Martyrdom, though, this song was another one that felt alright. You know, there's some cool arpeggios in the beginning, nice gallops, but again, the mix is inconsistent, the vocals are too out front. But the solo probably was the best solo on the entire album, I would say. Turn the Tide, I'm coming back to this song, kind of bordered on thrash metal a little bit, like it gets really fast. But again, squawky lead tones, and I will also flat out say, most of the choruses on this album just did not land. They missed the mark on a lot of these choruses. It just felt bland and generic. Like, they just sound bored. Like, they sounded bored when they did these choruses, it seemed to me. Captives, cool, sweet licks, and even some fun riffs that show up on here. And it kind of felt like Deep Purple to a degree with a harmonized lead. So this was another one of the songs that stuck the landing a little bit better in terms of the song itself and the production. Curse in Disguise, I actually like the gallops that show up because it kind of reminded me of Heart's Barracuda. And it is rocking and does have some cool harmonies and D beats. But again, the snare gets buried. Truth Ballet, or Truth Ballad, whatever. Opening riff's kind of heavy, and it has a bit of an 80s Judas Priest vibe, but it felt like a more generic Judas Priest. And maybe too much on the soloing on here. It felt like there was like 6 solos in almost 5 minutes. I was like, whittle the leads down. And then the closing track, Deadly Crimson, gets into like a big triplet swing, kind of like Iron Maiden a little bit. But again, boring chorus, cool licks, and it does slow down to almost doom metal territory briefly. And then you get harmonies, but again, the vocals just don't stick the landing for me. Yeah, basically this album was a chore to get through, I'll be honest with you. Mainly because, you know, some of these songs just kind of felt just like copy-paste put together, and the production inconsistent, the mix is inconsistent, and the vocals, I was not a big fan of the vocals, and of course that squawky lead tone. Jesus Christ. Ugh. Really got on my nerves. Man, this album, it was a nightmare at times. I mean, apart from a couple of songs, because they got the mix right on a couple of them, like The Whore of Babylon and Captives, I would say, like, those songs were really the only ones that got the mix right. And those are really the only songs that I actually even liked on here. Other than that, you get moments on other songs, but not enough to make this a good album. In fact, this album, I'm going to give this a 1.5 out of 5, and I know there's a lot of diehard fans of this band that are probably going to congregate this comment section. I know I'm probably going to get shit for it, but again, this is just my opinion. I just could not get into this album. But if you listen to this and you like it, then jam it to your heart's content. You do you. But for me, I probably will never return to this album ever again. Like, the production and the mix just really really left a lot to be desired, I should say. I just I couldn't get into it. This album just isn't for me. Maybe if I listened to the stuff they did right before this, I'd appreciate their more recent stuff more, but this album just missed the mark on so many levels. But of course, like I said, those are just my opinions. What did you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that will tell me what they think and probably think I'm an idiot, but it is what it is. But thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Keep your horns high and your dreams wet.
Thank you for your patronage.